walked through the massive halls of the Confederation Council building on Nexus Prime. Her footsteps echoed against the walls made of crystal that came from worlds she had never seen. Around her, aliens of every shape and size moved with purpose. Some floated like living clouds of gas. Others crawled on multiple legs across the ceiling. A few looked almost human, but their skin sparkled like diamonds. Was the only actual human in sight. She carried a small data pad that contained Earth's latest report to the Galactic Confederation. The numbers were not impressive. Earth had 47 billion humans spread across their home world and 12 small colonies. Their fleet consisted of exactly 847 ships. Most were small patrol boats and cargo vessels. The largest was barely 300 meters long. The other species in the Confederation had fleets that numbered in the tens of thousands. Their ships were kilometers long and carried weapons that could destroy entire cities. Some races had been building warships for longer than humans had existed. Entered the council chamber and took her seat in the section marked for junior members. The chair was designed for beings much larger than humans. Her feet barely touched the floor. Around the massive circular room, representatives from 200 different worlds and species filled seats that floated at various heights. At the center of the room stood Fleet Admiral S of the Draconis Federation. His species looked like giant lizards that walked on two legs. Scales covered his body, and his yellow eyes glowed in the dim light. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "The hegemony has moved 3 more battle fleets to our border," S announced. "They now have over 50,000 ships ready for war. Their planet-killer weapons have been tested on dead worlds. The readings show they can crack a planet's crust in less than 10 minutes." Worried sounds came from around the chamber. The representative, a being that looked like a tall bird with blue feathers, clicked her beak nervously. "Perhaps we should try to talk with them again. War benefits no one." "Talking has not worked," replied the delegate from the crystalline worlds. His body was made of living rock that sparkled with inner light. "The hegemony wants our resources and our worlds. They have made this clear. We must prepare for war." Watched the debate continue for hours. Species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years argued about strategy and weapons. They discussed deploying fleets of ships the size of small cities. They talked about orbital weapons platforms that could destroy entire solar systems. No one asked for humanity's opinion. When finally stood to speak, several aliens turned to look at her with what she had learned to recognize as amusement. The representative, a being made of living gas held together by an energy field, made a sound like wind chimes that knew was laughter. "The human wishes to speak," announced the council moderator, an ancient creature called a witness. Its voice carried no emotion. "The chair recognizes Ambassador of Earth." Cleared her throat. "Thank you. Earth wants to contribute to the defense of the Confederation. We know our fleet is small, but we have other resources. Our engineers have been working on new technologies. We might be able to help in ways that are not obvious." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then S let out a sound that was clearly laughter. "Help, little human, your entire species has been in space for less than 200 years. Some of us have been fighting wars since before your son was born. Your largest ship is smaller than our shuttle craft." Other voices joined in with similar comments. The delegate said, "We appreciate the offer, but perhaps humans should focus on protecting your own small colonies. Leave the real fighting to those who understand it." Felt her face grow hot with embarrassment and anger, but she kept her voice calm. "We understand more than you might think." "Do you?" asked the crystalline delegate. "How many worlds can your species defend at once? How many enemy ships can your fleet destroy? We have scanned data from your home system. We know exactly what you have built and where you have built it." This was true. The Confederation kept careful watch on all member species to make sure they followed the military treaties. Every few months, survey ships would scan human space and count their vessels. Earth was allowed a certain number of ships based on their population and territory. They had never exceeded this limit. Sat back down as the debate continued around her. The other species returned to their serious discussions about deploying massive fleets and ancient weapons. They talked about ships that carried millions of crew members and could fight for years without resupply. What they did not talk about were the strange readings their surveys had been getting from the outer parts of human space. The sensors detected what appeared to be unusually large asteroids. Some moved in odd patterns. Others seemed to have energy readings that did not make sense for space rocks. But the survey crews always concluded that these were natural objects. After all, they were scanning for ships, not asteroids. Listened to the arguments and memorized every detail about Confederation military capabilities. She took notes about which species had which types of weapons. She recorded information about their patrol routes and communication codes. All of this information would go into her next report to Earth. But her report would not go to the Earth that the Confederation knew about. It would go to a place much deeper in the Sol system, where humans had been working on projects that would surprise everyone in this room. As the session ended and the aliens filed out, still debating their strategies, remained in her chair. She looked up at the massive dome above the chamber, where holographic displays showed the current positions of Confederation and Hegemony fleets. Thousands of ships moved like schools of fish through the darkness of space. None of those displays showed what was really hiding in the asteroid belt around Earth's sun. None of the Confederation's proud ancient species had any idea what humans had actually been building for the past 70 years. Smiled and gathered her papers. Let them think humans were harmless. Let them believe Earth had only 847 ships. The truth would come out soon enough. Floated in the zero gravity of Ceres Station, looking out through the thick transparent metal at the construction site beyond. What had once been the dwarf planet Ceres was now something else entirely. The rocky surface had been carved away in sections, revealing the gleaming metal framework underneath. Massive engines, each the size of a city block, were attached to what had once been the South Pole. Weapons arrays stretched across the surface like geometric patterns. Ceres was no longer a planetoid. It was a ship, the largest ship ever built by any species in known history. "Hard to believe we pulled it off," said Dr. Sarah as she joined at the observation deck. She was the head of the division, the woman who had figured out how to make alien technology work with human engineering. Her hair had gone gray during the 70 years of construction, but her eyes still held the excitement of someone seeing impossible things become real. Nodded. "When I started this project, I was 25 years old. I thought we might finish one ship if we were lucky. Now look at us." Through the viewport, they could see 4 other construction sites in the distance. Each one had been a different celestial body before the work began. Vesta had been converted into a mobile fortress. Pallas was now a carrier ship that could launch thousands of fighters from hidden bays, had become a support vessel with manufacturing capabilities that could build new ships while traveling through space. And furthest out, barely visible even with the enhanced sensors, was their project. Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, was being transformed into something that would dwarf even Ceres. The ice had been melted and reformed into armor plating. The rocky core had been hollowed out and filled with the most advanced technology humanity could build. "Tell me the story again," Sarah said, "about how this all started." Smiled. He had told this story many times to new engineers who joined the project. It had become something of a tradition. "It was 2387, he began. Humanity had just made first contact with the Galactic Confederation. Everyone on Earth was excited. We were going to join a community of advanced species. We would learn from civilizations thousands of years older than us. It was going to be wonderful." Sarah had heard this story many times, but she always listened carefully. The next part was important. "But then the negotiation teams came back from their first meetings," continued. "They told us the truth. The galaxy was not a peaceful place. It was controlled by whoever had the biggest guns and the most ships. The Confederation kept the peace by making sure no one species could challenge all the others. But there were other powers out there. The hegemony, the Dark Fleet, others we had not even heard of yet. The first human diplomats had been given a choice. Earth could join the Confederation as a junior member. They would be protected, but they would also be limited. Their military would be restricted based on their population and territory. With only Earth and a few small colonies, humanity would be allowed fewer than 1,000 ships. The politicians wanted to accept, said. They thought it was better to be safe as a small member than to risk being destroyed as an enemy. But a few people in the military had different ideas. General Hayes had been one of those people. She was the head of Earth's Space Defense Force at the time. She had looked at the numbers and realized the truth. If humanity stayed small and weak, they would always be small and weak. When a real threat appeared, the older species would sacrifice the newer ones to save themselves. So she came up with the plan, Sarah said, taking over the story. Join the Confederation, accept the restrictions. Let them think we were just another weak species, but at the same time start building what we really needed. The plan had been simple in theory but incredibly difficult in practice. Earth would build ships that were not technically ships. They would take asteroids and small planets and turn them into mobile weapons platforms. The Confederation's sensors were designed to count vessels, not to examine every piece of space rock in detail. The work had taken 7 decades. Entire generations of humans had lived their lives in the hidden construction sites. They had families and children in the asteroid belt. They built schools and hospitals inside the shells of converted planetoids. The official records on Earth showed that these people had died or disappeared. But in reality, they had become the crew of humanity's secret fleet. The hardest part was the technology, Sarah said. When we started, human science was centuries behind the other species. We had to steal, buy, or trade for every piece of advanced equipment we could get our hands on. She had led teams of scientists who pretended to be simple researchers studying alien technology for peaceful purposes. They bought sensor equipment that they claimed was for asteroid mining. They purchased shield generators that they said were for protecting space colonies. They acquired weapons that they insisted were for clearing dangerous space debris. All of it had gone into the construction project. And the AI systems added, that was your breakthrough. Sarah nodded proudly. Humans were good at building artificial intelligence, better than most of the alien species, as it turned out. The other races relied on massive crews to operate their ships. Some of their largest vessels needed millions of beings to function properly. But human ships could be run by AI systems that were smarter and faster than any biological crew. A planetoid the size of Ceres, which should have needed a crew of 10 million, could be operated by fewer than 50,000 humans working with advanced computers. The funny thing is, Sarah said, we never actually lied to them. When the Confederation surveys counted our ships, they got the right number. Earth really does have only 847 official vessels. We just never mentioned that we also had 5 mobile planets. Checked his chronometer. Speaking of which, we should get ready. The latest survey team will be coming through the system next week. We need to make sure everything looks normal. This was always the most dangerous time. Every few months, Confederation ships would visit human space to count vessels and check for illegal construction. The converted planetoids would power down their engines and drift in normal orbital patterns. Their weapon systems would retract into hidden bays. Special coating on their surfaces would make them appear to be nothing more than unusually dense asteroids. The survey teams had never detected anything suspicious. They would scan each object, confirm it was a natural space body, and move on. Their reports always concluded that humanity was following all the rules. But that was about to change. Received a coded message on his personal communicator. It was from on Nexus Prime. The message was short and used words that would seem innocent to anyone monitoring human communications. The storm season is beginning earlier than expected. We may need to bring in the harvest soon. Sarah read the message over his shoulder. So it's finally happening. Nodded. The hegemony was preparing to attack. After 70 years of hiding in the asteroid belt, building impossible ships in secret, humanity was about to reveal what they had really been doing. Send word to all construction sites, said. Begin final preparations, and send a message to Captain on Terra Nova. Tell him it's almost time to stop pretending to be a rock. The emergency session of the Galactic Confederation Council began at what humans would call 3 in the morning Nexus Prime time, hurried through empty corridors as alarms echoed off the crystal walls. She had been woken by an urgent message that made her blood run cold. The hegemony had issued an ultimatum. When reached the council chamber, she found it already filled with worried representatives. The usual formal seating arrangements had been abandoned. Species that normally sat far apart were clustered together in small groups, speaking in hushed voices. The air felt thick with fear. Fleet Admiral S stood at the center podium, his scaled face grim. Behind him, holographic displays showed star maps with flashing red indicators. Too many red indicators. The situation is worse than we initially believed, S announced. 3 hours ago, the hegemony transmitted the same message to every Confederation world simultaneously. They demand that we surrender the entire Outer Rim territory, 57 star systems, over 200 billion beings. A chorus of shocked voices filled the chamber. The delegate stood up, her blue feathers ruffled with agitation. They cannot be serious. The Outer Rim contains some of our most important industrial worlds. They are completely serious, replied the crystalline representative. Our deep space sensors show hegemony fleets moving toward all major border systems. They have deployed at least 60,000 warships. Some of their vessels are larger than anything in our databases. Listened carefully as the reports continued. The hegemony had been building up their forces for years, apparently in secret locations outside of known space. Their new ships used weapons technology that the Confederation had never seen before. Preliminary scans showed energy readings that known physics. What are our options? Asked the delegate, his gaseous form flickering with nervous energy. S manipulated the holographic display to show Confederation fleet positions. We have approximately 43,000 ships that can be deployed for combat operations. However, our forces are spread across hundreds of systems. It would take weeks to gather them into effective battle groups. And the hegemony has given us 48 hours to respond, added another voice. Watched the debate that followed with growing alarm. The mathematics were simple and brutal. The Confederation had slightly fewer ships than the hegemony, but the enemy had the advantage of concentration and surprise. Worse, their new weapons technology meant that ship-to-ship comparisons might not matter. The Draconis representative suggested an immediate military response. We cannot appear weak. Deploy our fleets now and show them that the Confederation will not be intimidated. With what? Snapped the delegate. Half our ships are on patrol duty. A quarter are in maintenance cycles. We could maybe gather 15,000 combat-ready vessels in the next 2 days. Then we negotiate, said another voice. Give them some of what they want. Buy time to prepare our defenses. You want to abandon 57 systems. The crystalline delegate's voice rang like struck metal. Sacrifice 200 billion lives to save ourselves. Had remained silent through all of this, taking notes and recording details. But now she stood up. Around the chamber, conversation died as beings noticed the human trying to speak. The chair recognizes Ambassador, announced the witness. Thank you, said. Before we make any decisions, I need to consult with Earth's leadership. This affects human colonies in the Outer Rim as well. I request a 3-day delay before any final choices are made." The chamber erupted in what had learned to recognize as laughter from a dozen different species. S made the rumbling sound that meant amusement among the Draconis. "Little human," S said, "we appreciate your concern for your few small colonies, but this is a discussion for species that can actually affect the outcome of a galactic war. What could Earth possibly contribute that would matter?" "I do not know yet," replied honestly. "That is why I need to ask." More laughter. The delegate made his wind chime sound. "Perhaps the humans want to offer their 800 ships to help. That would bring our total force up to, still not nearly enough." Felt her face grow hot, but she kept her voice steady. "I am not asking you to wait for us. I am asking for time to determine how Earth can help. 3 days." The delegate clicked her beak dismissively. "The hegemony will not wait 3 days. They want an answer in 45 hours. "Then give them an answer in 45 hours, said. "But please, give me 3 days to contact Earth before you finalize any military deployments." S looked around the chamber, clearly wondering why they were wasting time on this. "Very well. The human can have her 3 days. It will not change anything, but it costs us nothing to wait." As the session continued, sent a coded message to Earth. She used the same simple phrase that had been prepared years earlier. "The weather is turning bad. Recommend bringing the cattle inside." On Luna Base, the message was received and decoded within minutes. Admiral Hayes, now 96 years old but still sharp as a laser cutter, read the words that meant the Confederation was facing imminent destruction. She activated the communication system that connected to 5 hidden locations throughout the Sol system. "All stations, this is Luna Base. Execute Protocol 7. Repeat, execute Protocol 7. The response was immediate. In the asteroid belt, massive fusion engines that had been dormant for months began powering up. On Ceres, Captain James received the activation codes he had been waiting for his entire adult life. "All hands," announced over the ship's communication system. "This is the captain. Prepare for combat operations. After 70 years of playing dead, Terra Nova is going to war." Similar announcements were being made on 4 other converted planetoids. Crews that had spent decades in hiding began activating weapons systems that had never been fired in anger. Artificial intelligence networks that had been running silent began coordinating with their sister ships across the solar system. But they would not reveal themselves yet. The plan required perfect timing. Back on Nexus Prime, sat in her small apartment and composed a message to Admiral Hayes. She reported everything she had learned about Confederation and hegemony capabilities. She provided detailed analysis of their weapon systems, fleet deployments, and strategic weaknesses. Most importantly, she confirmed what the hidden observers had been reporting for months. The hegemony's new superweapons were impressive, but they had been designed to fight conventional fleets. Ships that moved in predictable patterns. Ships that followed known tactical doctrines. They had never been tested against opponents that thought like humans. Sealed the message and prepared to wait. In 42 hours, the Galactic Confederation would give the hegemony their answer. But first, the hegemony was about to discover that they had miscalculated something important. They had counted the Confederation's ships accurately. They had measured their weapons correctly. They had analyzed their tactical capabilities properly. But they had completely failed to notice the 5 mobile planets that were about to change everything. Captain James stood on the bridge of Terra Nova, watching the tactical displays that showed the battle raging around Nexus Prime. The hegemony had not waited for the Confederation's official response. Their fleets had attacked at dawn, appearing from hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects. The Confederation forces were fighting bravely, but they were being destroyed. watched as another Draconis battle cruiser exploded under fire from 3 hegemony dreadnoughts. The enemy ships were massive, some of them over 10 kilometers long, and their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park, "the hegemony is deploying their planet killers. 3 of them are targeting Nexus Prime directly." Nodded grimly. Planet killers were exactly what their name suggested. Weapons designed to crack open worlds and destroy entire civilizations. The hegemony had only used them on uninhabited systems before, but they were clearly done with restraint. On the main screen, could see one of the planet killers charging up. It was a ship the size of a small moon, covered in weapons arrays that glowed with building energy. When it fired, nothing would be left of Nexus Prime except radioactive dust. "All ships report ready, sir," announced Commander from the communications station. "Vesta, Pallas, and Europa are in position. Cloaking systems are stable. The enemy still reads us as natural asteroids." Took a deep breath. For 70 years he had trained for this moment. His entire life had been spent preparing to reveal humanity's greatest secret. Around the bridge, his crew waited silently. Most of them had been born on Terra Nova. This converted planetoid was the only home they had ever known. "Send a message to Admiral Hayes on Luna," said. "Tell her that the Terran Defense Force is ready to engage." The response came back within seconds. "Execute Operation Thunderbolt. Show them what humans can really build." Turned to his crew. "All stations, this is the captain. After 70 years of hiding, it is time to let the galaxy know who we really are. Weapons systems online. Engines to full power. Drop cloak on my mark." On the tactical display, could see that the hegemony planet killer had nearly finished charging its main weapon. In less than 2 minutes, it would fire on Nexus Prime and kill every being in the Confederation government. Mark said quietly. Terra Nova's cloaking field collapsed, revealing the true nature of what had appeared to be a large asteroid. The planetoid was 3,000 kilometers in diameter, bristling with weapon arrays that covered its entire surface. Massive engines at the South Pole glowed like miniature stars as they pushed the converted world to incredible speeds. Across the solar system, similar revelations were occurring. Vesta appeared near the hegemony's main battle line, its weapons already firing. Pallas materialized in the middle of an enemy formation, launching thousands of fighter craft from hidden bays. And Europa dropped their cloaks simultaneously, flanking the hegemony fleet from opposite directions. The effect on the battlefield was immediate and dramatic. "Unknown contacts," shouted a hegemony communications officer on a frequency that crew was monitoring. "Massive ships appearing throughout the system. Where did they come from?" The Confederation forces were equally shocked. Fleet Admiral S's voice came over the emergency channels. "What are those ships? They are not in our database. Identification unknown." Opened a communication channel that reached every ship in the system, both Confederation and hegemony. "This is Captain James of the Terran Defense Force vessel Terra Nova. Confederation ships, withdraw to safe distance. We will handle this from here." The silence that followed was deafening. Then dozens of voices began speaking at once, all demanding to know what was happening. Ignored them and focused on his weapons officer. "Target the planet killer. Full spread, all forward batteries." "Firing, sir." Terra Nova's main guns were weapons that had been designed to destroy worlds. When they fired, beams of coherent energy lanced across space and struck the hegemony planet killer amidships. The massive enemy vessel, which had been charging its ultimate weapon, simply came apart. Its hull cracked like an eggshell, and secondary explosions tore it to pieces within seconds. Around the system, the other human planetoids were engaging the enemy with similar results. Hegemony ships that had been dominating the Confederation fleet found themselves facing weapons of equal or greater power. Their reality-warping technology, which had seemed unstoppable, proved useless against human shields made of exotic matter that bent space around itself. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, "the hegemony fleet is trying to withdraw. They are requesting reinforcements." Studied the tactical display. The enemy had lost over half their ships in the first 10 minutes of engagement. Their formation was broken, their command structure disrupted. Many of their vessels were fleeing toward the edge of the system. "Let them go," said, "but make sure they understand the message." He opened the communication channel again. "Hegemony vessels, this is Captain. You have 30 minutes to withdraw all forces from Confederation space. Any ship that remains after that time will be destroyed. This is your only warning." The response came from the Hegemony flagship, a vessel that had somehow survived the initial assault. "Human ship, identify yourself properly. What is your fleet designation? How many vessels do you command?" Smiled. "We are the Terran Defense Force. As for how many ships we command," he paused and looked around his bridge. "Currently, we have 5 planetoids operational, but we have 10 more under construction and materials gathered for 20 additional units. I suggest you factor that into your strategic planning." The communication channel went silent. On Nexus Prime, stood in the Confederation Council chamber, watching the holographic displays with amazement and growing understanding. The mysterious ships that had appeared were not ships at all. They were weapons platforms built into asteroids and small planets. Each one was larger than most space stations and more heavily armed than entire fleets. And they were human. Around her, alien representatives who had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers stared in shocked silence as the most powerful fleet in galactic history systematically dismantled the hegemony invasion force. Ambassador smiled and activated her communication device. "This is Ambassador to Captain. The Confederation Council is ready to receive your report on current human military capabilities." His voice came back clearly. "Tell them we have been building these ships for 70 years. Tell them we never broke any laws because we were not building ships. We were building mobile worlds. And tell them that Earth is no longer a junior member of anything." Looked around the chamber at the stunned faces of beings who had ruled the galaxy for. "I believe," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "that humanity would like to renegotiate our membership terms." 3 weeks after the battle at Nexus Prime, walked into the same council chamber where she had once been dismissed as representing an insignificant species. Everything looked the same. The crystal walls still gleamed with inner light. The floating seats still accommodated beings of every shape and size. The holographic displays still showed star maps and fleet positions. But everything had changed. No longer sat in the section marked for junior members. Her chair had been moved to the center ring, next to the seats reserved for the most powerful species in the galaxy. The Draconis Federation, the Empire, the Crystalline Worlds, and now Earth. When she entered, conversation stopped. Beings who had once laughed at humanity's offers to help now watched her with careful respect, some with fear. Fleet Admiral S approached her as she reached her seat. The massive reptilian's yellow eyes held an expression had never seen before when he looked at a human, something that might have been awe. "Ambassador," S said, his voice carrying none of its former condescension, "I wanted to thank you personally. Without your fleet's intervention, the hegemony would have destroyed Nexus Prime and killed billions. The Draconis Federation owes humanity a debt that cannot be repaid." Nodded politely. "We are all members of the Confederation, Admiral. We protect each other." Other representatives approached with similar messages. The delegate, who had once suggested that humans should leave the real fighting to others, now spoke of alliance treaties and technology sharing agreements. The representative offered exclusive trading rights that would have made Earth's corporations incredibly wealthy. Everyone wanted to be humanity's friend now. The witness called the session to order, and the chamber filled with the usual susurrus of different species settling into their seats. Noticed that several new faces were present. Emergency delegates from worlds that had never bothered to send representatives before. Everyone wanted to see what the humans would do next. "The first item of business," announced the witness, "is the formal report from Admiral of the Terran Defense Force." A holographic image of Captain appeared in the center of the chamber. He had been promoted to Fleet Admiral after the battle, making him the highest-ranking military officer from any single species. Could see that some of the older delegates were still struggling with this reality. "Honored representatives," began, "I am pleased to report that the hegemony threat has been neutralized. Their surviving ships have withdrawn to their original territory and have requested a formal ceasefire. Our intelligence suggests they are currently reassessing their strategic objectives." Manipulated his holographic display to show current fleet positions. "The Terran Defense Force has established patrol routes through all formerly contested systems. Our 5 operational planetoids are now providing security for the entire outer rim. Additionally, I can confirm that 10 more units will be completed within the next 2 years." Watched the reactions around the chamber. 15 planetoids, ships the size of moons, each one capable of destroying conventional fleets single-handedly. No species in galactic history had ever possessed such concentrated military power. "Furthermore," continued, "Earth has begun construction of a new class of vessel. Project Atlas will produce mobile battle stations built into larger planetary bodies. The first unit, based on Mars, should be operational within 10 years. The silence in the chamber was complete. Could have heard a pin drop if pins made noise in the strange atmosphere that the chamber maintained. His image nodded respectfully to the assembled delegates. "The Terran Defense Force stands ready to defend all Confederation worlds against any threat. We consider this our responsibility as members of the galactic community." When the hologram faded, it took several minutes before anyone spoke. Finally, the crystalline representative found his voice. "Admiral mentioned that these ships were under construction for 70 years. How is it possible that our surveys never detected such massive construction projects?" Stood to respond. "Because your surveys were designed to count ships, not to examine natural objects. Our planetoids were built inside asteroids and small planets. When they were not active, they appeared to be ordinary celestial bodies." "But the energy requirements," protested the delegate. "The materials, the industrial infrastructure, how could we miss all of that?" "You saw exactly what we wanted you to see," replied. "Mining operations, research stations, normal space industry. We never lied about what we were doing. We simply never explained the full scope of our projects." The representative's gaseous form flickered with agitation. "You deliberately deceived us. You made us believe you were weak when you were actually building the most powerful fleet in the galaxy." Met his gaze calmly. "We built what we needed to survive. When humanity first joined the Confederation, we were told that the galaxy was a dangerous place controlled by those with the strongest militaries. So we built a strong military." "But why hide it?" asked another delegate. "Why not reveal your capabilities gradually?" "Because," said, "we learned from watching you. We saw how older species treated newer ones. We noticed how junior members were expected to accept decisions made by their superiors. We decided that when we revealed our true capabilities, we wanted to do so from a position where we could negotiate as equals." S leaned forward in his floating chair. "And what are humanity's demands now? What does Earth want from the Confederation?" Had been preparing for this question for weeks. The answer would determine humanity's relationship with the rest of the galaxy for generations to come. "We want the same thing we have always wanted," she said. "To be part of a community of species working together for mutual benefit. The difference is that now we want to be partners, not junior members. We want a voice in galactic policy that reflects our actual capabilities, not our population or the age of our civilization." She paused and looked around the chamber. "We also want to prevent future conflicts like the one we just ended. The hegemony attacked because they thought the Confederation was weak. That perception was dangerous for everyone. Earth proposes the creation of a joint defense force with representatives from all member species, designed to prevent similar misunderstandings in the future." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some species worried about humanity's growing power. Others saw opportunities for new alliances and trade relationships. A few suggested that the traditional power structure of the Confederation might need to be completely redesigned. Listened patiently to all of it. She answered questions about human technology and capabilities. She assured worried delegates that Earth had no intention of conquering other worlds or imposing its will on other species. She explained humanity's vision of a stronger, more unified confederation. But through it all, she was aware of the unspoken truth that hung over every discussion. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Humanity was no longer the weakest member of the Confederation. They were now the strongest, and everyone in the chamber knew it. When the session finally ended, walked back to her quarters through corridors that seemed different now. The same aliens moved through the same spaces, but they no longer ignored the human ambassador. Some nodded respectfully as she passed. Others stepped aside to let her go first. In her apartment, composed her daily report to Earth. It would go through the same communication channels as always, but now everyone knew where those channels led. They led to a solar system where humans had spent 70 years quietly building the most powerful military force in galactic history. The report was short, negotiations proceeding smoothly. Recommend continuing current diplomatic posture. The galaxy is learning to see humanity as we see ourselves. Sealed the message and looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Terra Nova and her sister ships were patrolling the trade routes and protecting worlds that had once looked down on humanity as primitive newcomers. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again.